And away we go. It's the DFS Alert presented by Awesemo.com, brought to you in part by Yahoo DFS. More on that momentarily. Dan Strafford, Dave Lockren along with you. Friday morning, 10-game NBA slate. Loffy, how the hell are you doing?
Doing good, man. Watching some football, watching some basketball, watch the Flyers get a nice win today. So, Ben Simmons hit a three-pointer the other day. Can't beat it, man. Had a good couple of days. A bird did shit on me.
I saw that tweet. Yeah.
Just fired one off right on my arm. One of those, crispy white ones. It looked, you know what it looked like? It looked like cookies and cream ice cream. Don't imagine it tasted that way though. But
did I ever tell you my Central Park story with birds?
I found the closest tree and I did one of these, right? Like pull the sleeve up and I start trying to, but then the bark just starts coming off. I got the dog with me. I put it down. I had her lick it off. It was, I'm joking. I would never do that. I love that dog.
You licked it off. It's fine.
I liked it.
So I was walking through Central Park with my oldest and my wife, maybe even our second kid. I don't remember when it was, but I was holding my cell phone to try to get directions and a bird shit on the cell phone. Quite literally just like splattered all across my screen. And my oldest daughter was probably 3 or 4. And I've told this story again. So she now remembers it. So she'll be in the middle of conversation with friends like, hey, one time a bird pooped on my dad's phone. Like, yeah, this is not the story that needs to be part of the family legend. Like, this is not, I don't need this.
Could be worse, right?
Yeah, well, trust me, she has plenty of stories to share. Let's talk here on a 10-game slate coming off a 2-gamer on Thursday. We have on DK, and I'll mention some of the Yahoo offerings momentarily. We are heading into the weekend here, so you have the Baller tournament for the NFL. We have tons of content for Yahoo NFL available behind the paywall. Also, some non-premium content for there. Early birds are promo code 50% off your first month. But price points have risen on certain players. Thursday is sort of one of those slates that you really need to throw out the window when it comes to scoring, pricing, especially on a site like DK. They manipulated the hell out of prices on Thursday night. So if you are someone who tries to track pricing
or someone who thought fading Giannis Antetokounmpo was a good idea.
People did that? Well, I guess so. I saw
we had a guy in YouTube chat said, I'm fading Giannis in all 150 lineups. I'm a pretty subtle person. Like I'm serious. Cause I appreciate our viewers. Like, you know what I mean? We all do. So I try not to rip on him unless it's something egregious. And it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like he was 10-6.
Right.
Even if you're talking FanDuel, to fade him in 150
on Yahoo, like the price discrepancy from Giannis to everybody else was a good $14, $15. Yeah, I still wouldn't have faded him there. Like, I just think it's a bad choice. But
right. But consider this. The fantasy point projection was 20 or more points higher than the next closest player.
Right.
I mean, literally, I had him projected 20 points higher than the next closest player. And that was Booker. And that was assuming Rubio was out.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I'm with you there. So price points here. The guy I want to hammer down on, we can start at point guard. It's a guy you've talked about plenty of times. We all have had discussions about Lucca Don Cheech and exactly who he was going to be when he was drafted, and was he worth the trade, and was this going to be exactly the big leap forward for the Mavericks from Dirk to the next generation? Well, I think he's delivering on it, almost averaging a triple-double. Last time out against the Golden State Warriors, put up a gigantic stat line in just 26 minutes, 35 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds, 3 steals. Not all that, 26 minutes, 11 of 18 from the field, 6 of 10 from 3. He is the real deal. His price point is now starting to reflect that, Dave. He's at 11.4. He's been a mainstay of cash lineups for a few weeks for me now, just simply because of being, I think, woefully underpriced on a site like DraftKings. Does 11.4 feel like a much more reasonable and accurate price for Lucca? And how do you feel about him on this slate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mentioned this on, what was it? I guess it was the deeper dive. I guess it would have been the deeper dive on Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That there's just no reason he should be $1,600 less expensive than James Harden.
Right.
That's honestly, it's crazy. And people might be like, well, hold on a second now. James Harden is is, the greatest fantasy point producer there is. Yeah. Well, he was. And look, I'm not saying he isn't, but Luka doesn't have a Russell Westbrook playing alongside him. Giannis is the one guy. But Giannis, Harden, and Luka should be 1, 2, and 3 in price. And I don't even know how far separated it should be, because what Luka doesn't have that Giannis has, Luka he makes up with phenomenal 3-point shooting and just crazy high shot volume. At halftime, he had 33 points. The Warriors had 38. I mean, you think about how crazy that is. I'll do you one better. On the season, he is 1.82 fantasy DraftKings points per minute. Now, Giannis is 1.93, which is just nuts. And that actually probably went up after today. But if you take these actual per minute averages, James Harden is at 1.68. Luka's at 1.81. Giannis is 1.93. They're all elite. But there's no reason, like LeBron James is 11.3, Luka's 11.4. I still think Luka should be, $700 more expensive than LeBron. I think LeBron might be a tad overpriced, but no, Luka at 11.4. He's going to be a 12K player if he continues this pace. There's no question about it. And you will probably find slates where he is the most expensive player when some of the most elite players are on that slate. You said it. He had 35, 10, and 11 with 3 steals in 26 minutes. I mean, 75 fantasy points in 26 minutes. He produced 2.89 fantasy points per minute.
Those numbers are ones that you imagine, right? Like they're not legitimate numbers that happen often.
I don't even know if I could imagine that. Like you don't see that. It's just crazy. It was, remember when Hassan Whiteside,
triple doubles in 18 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah. And he was coming off the bench. This was when Spoelstra had like no interest in playing him. He just seemingly hated the guy. And he'd play him like 15 minutes a night and he'd have 40 fantasy points. Or Embiid in his rookie season would play 20 minutes and have 55 fantasy points. So we've seen this, but you don't see it this consistently as we've seen with Luka, and on such a routine basis. It's just exceptional.
Absolutely. So on this sort of slate, we'll do our typical roundup at the end of the top price guys and where Dave sees himself leaning as of this slate. We do have Harden and LeBron and Doncic all available at point guards. It's a 10-game slate, so we also have the likes of Westbrook and Simmons and Mitchell. You have Kemba Walker down at 7,600. You have so many names here. How do you see point guard breaking down, and where do you think you lean as of right now, as of top end of the position, value, and how point guard will be most valuable for you on Friday?
So, yeah, if you didn't get the picture already, I'm just going to keep playing Lucca Don Cheech. Right? It's really hard not to. Trae Young's been exceptional as well, but Luka's just been that much better. So Trae Young at 9,400 is definitely in play. But, Luka, at this point, you just are trying to find a way to get to Lucca Don Cheech. And what's crazy is Wednesday, it was easy to do that. That's why, by the way, when I said it was stupid for anyone to say I'm fading hard Giannis, like literally actually fading him in 150, or even playing less than 80% of the guy on DraftKings. We try so hard, Dan, to get up to the 12K or that 11.5 range.
Yep.
When Giannis is 10.6 or when Luka's 10.4, you don't have to try. And it's silly to think that you're being sharp or smart by going away from that. And that's why we always say there's a big difference between being contrarian and just being stupid. Fading elite players like that is not smart, put it that way. But yeah, Lucca Don Cheech here is a great play. I prefer him over Harden. There's no question. We preferred him over Harden the other day, even when he was $1,400 cheaper. I prefer him over Harden at $300 cheaper. And that might be a controversial take, but it's just, if I'm taking per minute production, consistency, and matchup in the consideration, Luka's playing 35, 36 minutes in close games. Maybe this game blows out, but I don't project for blowouts. He's got the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's a great spot. So, yeah, I got to go with him. I think Isaiah Thomas is an interesting guy in the mid-range. If you're talking like all the way up at the top, we know Kyrie Irving is not playing in this one. So I'll keep going back to Dinwiddie. And it's funny because People are fading him because they think he's too expensive. At 6K, it was like 50%. And then at 7,200, he was only 36%. The guy's really good, and he's playing big minutes, and he's got a great usage rate. It's going to be upwards of 30% with Kyrie off the floor. He's the primary playmaker, facilitator. He's doing everything. And now he's got a matchup against Sacramento at home. I think Spencer Dinwiddie is a totally reasonable play here as well. It's just it's a deep position for sure. Ben Simmons at 8,100 I find interesting. He seemed to be a little bit more aggressive, just sharper on his game. He only took 9 shots, though. If you watched it, you just said, man, Ben looked like he did a lot more than that, but he still had a great game. I'd say it was easily his best game of the season. And he's a type of guy that's going to rack up blocks and steals too. But I still don't think I get to him with some of these other guys priced really nicely. Donovan Mitchell, we can talk about him at shooting guard. He's fine, but I still prefer Dinwiddie here just because of the peripheral upside. I think it's better. He talked about Isaiah Thomas, solid option there. And then one guy, I'll just mention him here at the point. We can't get to everyone. That's why Adam's doing the deep dive. He does Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I do Tuesday and Thursdays now. And he'll break down everything more in depth. We have the strategy show. I'll be on that with Josh Engelman at 9:30 a.m. And then the deeper dive, you live before lock, you name it. But yeah, you've got to, I think, at least consider somebody like Devonte Graham, who is going to play 38 minutes in a competitive game, has come back down to earth a little bit lately. But as we've seen it, this Washington team defensively is no bueno, man. This is not a good defensive squad. And they're playing at an elevated pace. They kind of have everything that you're looking for in a defensive team for the opposing matchup. And we've just seen some insanely high totals going up against Washington, playing at a top 5 pace. They have a 115 defensive rating. It's second worst in the league, behind or ahead of only the Warriors. Devonte Graham's interesting to me. And then I guess, if you wanted to talk about Terry Rozier at his price, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I prefer Graham, but I'll tell you this much. Here would be it's not even a bold take, but here's what I think. One of these guys in the starting backcourt is going to have a really big game. It's just tough to tell which one it's going to be on a nightly basis.
Yeah, Graham's the guy I was going to hone in the mid-tier to ask you about, simply because of bad game, not a bad game, but not a great DFS fantasy game last time out. Feels like a guy that's going to go overlooked, has had upside, has come back down to earth. Clearly, I think there's a bit of upside here. I'm seeing that game at 233 as the over-under. Charlotte and Washington, you already mentioned IT2 on the other side. So some food for thought there at point guard. Lots of different options. You're going to have spread out ownership at point guard typically on a slate this big. So take your stands and see exactly where some of your crunches come out. If you are somebody who is MMEing, if you're hand building, make your choices, make them wisely. I'm going to play Lucca until he's 12-5 at least, and then I'll second guess it like that. Then I'll start thinking about it again and see where I go from there. Lineup construction be damned. I just love watching the guy play basketball. Let's go to shooting guard next. I'll fill you in on Yahoo's offerings for NBA on Friday and on the weekend for NFL momentarily. We do have Lucca and James Harden eligible here at shooting guard. Bradley Beal is coming off a little bit of a downside game, had 33 points, didn't have much going in the first half, ended up fairly efficient from the field, 14 of 24, pretty good, 58% shooting, 3 of 7 from 3, 43% shooting, pretty good, but no real peripheral stats against the San Antonio Spurs, who have struggled a bit on defense on the year. A gigantic game, was at 138 to 132. He's now in line to be in yet another high-paced game against the Charlotte Hornets. Do you see any sort of upside for Beal here, or is it, Doncic higher up and along with Harden and finding a cheaper option like a Dinwiddie at 7,600?
Yeah, it's not that I have a problem with Beal. It comes down to the price point. There are so many really, really good options on this slate. Beal at 9,600, I don't see myself getting to him there. It's a good matchup, sure, but I'm not going to get there. Dinwiddie's $2,000 cheaper. Not saying he has the same ceiling, but he's a good player in a great spot. Or I'll just get up to Lucca Doncic. I don't see Beal being the guy. Like Devonte Graham at almost $3,000 less. Once again, it's not apples to apples, but when you're talking about per dollar value, there's definitely something to be said for Beal being a little bit too expensive. Jimmy Butler faces his former team the Chicago Bulls. I'm okay with Butler there. I don't have an issue with it. I wish he was a little bit less expensive. He's $8,300 on DraftKings. I would imagine I'd have some, but not a ton of him. Looking at the backcourt for Detroit, I think that probably would be a wise move for us to break down real quickly. Reggie Jackson is out. Then you have Langston Galloway, who played 40 minutes last game, 38 minutes the game before that. Is this going to continue? I don't know. But we do know is that Tony Snell was playing 32, 33, 31 minutes. And then he suffered that injury. He is going to be out already. Is Langston Galloway worth it with those many minutes against Atlanta? I think you could make an argument that he's a decent enough play. He's going to have some rough games. Like last time out, he had 18 fantasy points in 40 minutes. But 40 minutes is a lot of run for a guy that's priced at 4,500. As a matter of fact, that was against Chicago. Against Charlotte, he had 38 minutes and scored 32 actual points. This dude's not going to provide peripherals at all, but he's actually, in terms of scoring, not been terrible. 19, 18, 32 points. That's just a few of his games over his last 5. The peripherals are ugly, and that's one of the reasons I hate playing guys like Galloway. But against Atlanta, I don't have any issue with him if you need to get somebody cheap. Atlanta Hawks playing at a top 10 pace this season, while the Detroit Pistons are all the way down there at 25th. Pretty significant pace up spot, about 5 possessions per 48. So in terms of value, I don't have an issue with that. Josh Richardson, maybe getting a little bit too pricey for me here, but this is a pretty rough San Antonio team right now, Dan. This is not your daddy's San Antonio Spurs. That's what they say, right?
Someone says that. I don't know if it's anyone I want to listen to, but
it's
that's
not they.
That's fair.
You've heard it, right? I'm not crazy.
No, you're not crazy. It's fine.
This ain't your grandpappy's root beer. You ever had that?
I've heard. Yes, maybe not grandpappy, to be quite honest.
Maybe this ain't your granddad's root beer.
Granddad.
It's spiked root beer. In case you're
in Philly. In Philly, what is it? Is it grand or grandpa, granddad? Like what was your?
Yeah, grandpa. No one's saying grandpappy around.
I really hope so. Pennsylvania's not far away.
That's true. That's true.
You get some rocking chairs on front porches.
And I am a relative of the Hatfields, so
yeah, we've had that discussion before. That's on some sort of fan. It's funny. Everyone I hope knows. Dave and I at Fantasy Insiders. I still have a calendar reminder for Fantasy Insiders podcast that comes up on my phone.
That's awesome.
So that's a time gone by. But nonetheless, we continue on here. Reminder, Dave already mentioned the schedule for tomorrow. You have the strategy show in the morning, then you have the deeper dive at 5 p.m., live before lock at 6. Tons of free content in front of the paywall. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're watching us. If you're listening, head on over to YouTube. That's where the live shows happen. Josh and the rest of the crew do a great job of the strategy show, getting that up to the podcast channel pretty quickly. But you want to be there live, be able to ask your questions over on YouTube. So subscribe, hit the alarm bell, and make sure to comment on each and all of the videos and jump into chat as well. Any take here across the situation in Golden State? I know they're a terrible basketball team. Draymond, I think, is questionable as of right now. Is there any of those guards in the mix, like an Alec Burks or anybody that you think is at least worth being in the mix at point guard or shooting guard?
I don't think you need to get there. We'll obviously wait on some injuries, but right now I don't see anybody as necessary in that guard spot. Before the prices came up, it made a lot more sense. But now you're probably overpaying for some of these guys. Like I don't think I want to pay $5,200 for Bowman. Is it the worst thing you could do? Probably not. But he's not a very good player. Alec Burks, you mentioned 5,700. It's not crazy. It's just you're going to be hard pressed to get those peripherals from him. And I would just prefer other guys that I know when they're not knocking down shots can at least give you something. And 4 or 5 assists seems to be the ceiling when it comes to Alec Burks.
All right, let's take a quick look at what Yahoo DFS has in their lobby as of right now. The NFL baller, $200,000 in total prizes, $20K to first place, $10 entry. That is 22.3 thousand entries overall. Management fee on that, I believe, is at 10.1. Yeah, 10.1%, 5,600 places paid. Then they also have a $25 entry, 60K baller that has $60,000 in total prizes. Friday night, you have a $10 40K baller, 4K to first place. Again, 4.5 total entries, 969 obligatory nice, 969 places paid, and 12% management fee. So check out Yahoo DFS. Again, mention it all the time. It is a slow grind if you want to build up your bankroll, but it is a good place to start out. Jumping into playing at full volume on DraftKings without a significant bankroll can be a little bit daunting. So playing on a site like Yahoo DFS can really allow you some time to understand that game, build it up, and then move it on over, if you so choose, to a site like DK or FanDuel, wherever you might see the bigger prize pools that are going on throughout DFS currently. So we continue on here. We hit small forward next, and clearly we've talked about some of these names already, but you get LeBron, Kawhi, Jimmy Butler is at 8,300. Appreciate you mentioning the revenge narrative before. Kidding. Dave didn't say that. Paul
Just
George
said
at
his former team.
Yeah, exactly. Ben Simmons is 8,100 as well. What's your take early on here on the Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George? It felt as though a lot of people wanted to get into the narrative that, oh, they're going to cannibalize each other. They're going to have issues both being on the court. These guys are playing pick and roll together. Like, these guys are thriving together. Are they a legitimate correlative duo in DFS? Like, do you see them both playing well on slates where the matchup is significant for the pick and roll?
Not well enough. Not well enough.
Okay.
Like, I don't think they cannibalize each other in terms of affecting the Clippers' win totals, but I certainly expect them to cannibalize each other from a fantasy point perspective. I mean, Paul George is a career 30% usage guy. There's just no matter how you cut it, excuse me, no matter how you cut it, he's going to take away from Kawhi. Now, someone might come and say, okay, well, how do you explain LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Well, that's very easy. There's nobody else on that team. You know what I mean? There's nobody else there. So, and by the way, not a career 26% usage guy, but last year 30%, or not a career 30%, 26%. But he's had 30 plus. George's had 30 plus percent usage several times in his career. Last year was 30%. This year 37% through 4 games. Of course, only one of them with Leonard. But you think about it, there are a lot of mouths to feed now. You still have Lou Williams on this team.
Yep.
And you have Paul George, and you have Kawhi Leonard. I think they'll be playable once their prices come down, or they prove me wrong, one or the other. We'll have to see, right? But yeah, that's what it comes down to for me right now. I don't see the need to pay for either of them, and it's a matchup against Houston that probably appears pretty appealing. But at these prices, there are so many well-priced players in great spots that aren't going to be competing with another elite all-star on their team tonight.
228 over-under from what I'm seeing on one of the sites I'm looking at. So a significant over-under, but nothing that is earth-shattering in that Houston-LA Clippers game. Where else do you see yourself going? At small forward, you have the likes of Butler and LeBron, Ben Simmons. DeMar DeRozan had a pretty solid game last time out against the Washington Wizards at 40 minutes, 45. Wow, that's not that great. 40 minutes, 45 DraftKings points, 31 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. Not really getting the high upside peripheral stats that we may have seen in the past from DeRozan. Hield is at 7,400. Jalen Brown has been somebody that has been pretty solid all year long for the Boston Celtics. He's at 68. Anybody stand out to you as plays that you like here early on?
Not a position I'm in love with, no. Where you have multi-position eligibility, it'll certainly help you out. But no, I don't love this whatsoever. Jabari Parker's price tag has come down, so that's good. He's down to $6,100. And, you know, he's had a couple subpar games, but I think you get him back up to 32 minutes here. 6,100 is nice. I mean, he was up at 7,200 just a little while ago. So it's good to see him, you know, come back down to earth a bit where you can actually roster him again. But all in all, this position out, we talk point guard and shooting guard so far. There's a ton of good plays there. I have trouble really loving anything, which, definitely brings somebody like Paul George into play at 8,100. I don't want to pay 95 for Kawhi. Uh, the, Kawhi, I think, is going to be better than he was last year because you just seen him take a lot more assertive role in the offense. But, last year you had a lot of other really talented players on that team surrounding him, Siakam and Kyle Lowry as your playmaker. And of course there's Lou Williams too, but still, I think Paul George, because he's 8,100 and not 9,500, and he played 37 minutes last game, you might find yourself getting to some of him because the position doesn't have a lot. And then the one other guy that I throw out there is Tobias Harris. Very up and down this season. He's had some terrible strings of shooting. I mean, he had a 5-game stretch where he shot 0 for 18 from 3. He seems to have fixed that and gotten off the schneid, and his price has come down quite a bit. So 6,200 Tobias Harris against San Antonio also feels like a pretty decent spot to me.
All right, let's roll on to power forward. We have Anthony Davis with the ever-present Q tag. He is still dealing with that shoulder injury, now listed as probable according to the official NBA injury designation on Thursday. So we should see him out there. Now, obviously, one of the most elite talents in the league. He has been seeing a price fluctuation between about the 9K, mid 9K to high 10s. He's at 10-1 in this matchup with Oklahoma City. Is this a gigantic upside spot for AD, or do you see yourself maybe staying away and paying down at power forward?
I mean, everything's an upside spot for him, but no, I don't love this spot by any means. I have a lot of respect for Steven Adams, and I think he'll at least make his life difficult enough. And then Anthony Davis' price has come up. It wasn't more than a few days ago that he was priced at 9,200, and now you got him at 10-1. Once again, when you compare him to guys like Doncic, and I'll throw Harden in there too, and a bunch of other guys, I'd rather just pay for them, and it's kind of that simple. I do think Kristaps Porzingis at 7,300 is pretty solid. Lorimar Cannon definitely improved last game. It was nice to see that. He would have played about 32 minutes had they not yanked everyone in the blowout, so that's good. 38.5 fantasy points. He's still reasonably priced where you could get to him. And a couple of other guys here. First one being Thomas Bryan. That was a disappointing effort. He had a great third quarter and then didn't come back. So that sucked. But he had 11, 5, and 6 in 22 minutes. He's been a solid per minute guy this season for sure. You got him going up against Charlotte. I like that a lot. I don't know if I love his price point, but it's pretty solid. 6,600 against Charlotte, a team that's allowing more points in the paint than any other team this season. Definitely puts him in a position for big time upside here.
All right, as we roll on, we'll hit some more power forwards, I'm sure, at center. Do want to remind everybody that the promo code for the early bird is the word early bird, just one word, over on Osmo.com. That gets you 50% off your first month. And a reminder to follow Osmo_com and Osmo NFL and NBA is often plenty of giveaways happening there for free content. Anybody else that, well, let's talk centers, and I'm sure we'll have some crossover here. But at the top end of center, you do have Davis as your most expensive, but you get Embiid, Jokic, Drummond, Gobert, and Bam Adebayo, all just center eligible on DK. They are 9,300 to 8K respectively. Embiid clearly has tons of upside, as does Jokic when he is right. I know he is fat and slow now, and nobody wants to play him anymore, but that's fine. Drummond is at 8,500. He's seen, obviously, his usage decline with Blake Griffin back, and then you have Gobert coming off of a very, very solid outing against the Minnesota Timberwolves. 12 points, 15 rebounds, 5 blocks. Rudy Gobert is never going to give you a ton of points. He's not going to give you 30 points from the field, but those peripherals with the blocks and rebounds get him there often. What do you like at center? Are these the big names at the top that you think will be part of your roster construction, or do you see point guards like Doncic and Harden being where you pay up and trying to find value elsewhere?
So, I'm always trying to pull some good stats for you, Dan, and
I appreciate that.
Do it right off the top. So here's a good one. The San Antonio Spurs are allowing the second most points per possession and the third most points in post-up situations this season. They are getting crushed in post-ups not just from a points perspective, but also points per possession. Do you know who, once again this season, like he does every season, leads the league in post points?
Markieff Morris.
Yes, Markieff Morris. Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid averaging 1.09 points per possession, 35% frequency. That's a lot. It's the highest frequency in the league by a wide margin. Like Lamarcus Aldridge is another big post guy. He's at 27%. Kevin Love's at 25%. Embiid's at 35%. He loves that post up, back him down, and I think he's going to crush San Antonio in the post. It's a good spot. It's one that I really like. And I think it would be a surprise if Joel Embiid didn't take advantage of that. So at the top of the position where he's 9,300, very, very reasonable price. I like it, man. I really like him a lot here. And I think just, you obviously can't look at one stat and make your mind up, but Joel Embiid in a close game is going to get minutes. And I would have given him about 33 minutes here. He's had some rough games, but a lot of that's because of blowouts or because he was limited, still on the season. When you look at what he's done from a per minute basis, because that's what matters, right? If we think he played 34 minutes last game, he's averaging on a per minute basis. Let me pull it up here. 1.61 fantasy points. So that's really good. The only concern I have is that the Philadelphia 76ers have a second leg of a back-to-back on Saturday. I don't know if Embiid's going to go, 28 and 28 minutes. That would be my only concern here.
That makes sense. What about the rest of the top end? Anybody worthwhile? And then we can take a look at some value and be done.
Yeah. At the top, it's tough. I don't know if you need to pay for Jokic here. I don't think I'm going to pay for Jokic here. I know you could say, hey, well, he's really affordable, sure. But I'd rather just pay a little bit more for Embiid and hope that we get his normal minutes. Andre Drummond against Atlanta is interesting, but there's no question that Blake Griffin has taken away from him. That's a certainty. He's the guy I like the most here. Rudy Gobert, you mentioned, like, you're not going to get the huge point totals from him, but you could also just get an explosive overall performance where he stuffs the box score. So Gobert's interesting. There's a lot of guys in this 8-9K range that are really great today, like at all positions.
Yep. Feels like there could be some interesting choices made around balanced lineups versus trying to get up to Doncic and Harden or Embiid and Doncic and way you go about roster construction on this sort of slate. Trying to take a quick scroll through here to some of the cheaper options. Daniel Tice is coming off a very solid outing that I think Adam was on for a bit of Wednesday, but 40 overall DraftKings points. He had 8 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, which obviously is a bit of it's very much an outlier for Tice, but still an excellent outing. Matchup on the other side against Jokic. Any value guys, including Tice, stand out, or do you feel like at present it is more of a top-heavy position?
Yeah, I really don't love the value here. If you wanted to get to some Cody Zeller, that's fine. But right now where we stand, there isn't a lot that stands out as like premium value at the center position. We could get some news that could change things. Steven Adams is 4,800, so I don't mind going there. He's probably going to have a big game relatively soon, and he's still a quality player. But there's nothing I really like. And if you look at some of the injuries right now, just waiting on who's going to be active, not just at the center position, but Draymond Green is questionable. You might get some value there. Kevon Looney's still out. Daniel House is doubtful. Josh Richardson's still questionable. Derek White's questionable. Bogdan Bogdanovic is questionable. That's big news because he's clearly the best player on that team with De'Aaron Fox off the court. I think people are finally beginning to realize he's just a better player, a better fantasy player than Buddy Hield, unquestionably. Your boy Markieff Morris is questionable. So we do have a couple that are going to sway things, whether it's a little bit or it's enough to push someone else over the top. We'll have to wait and see.
All right, so 10K and above, AD, LeBron.
Lucca.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Anybody, let's go. It's going to be Lucca no matter what. Even looking 9K and above. Well, Embiid versus Lucca. Price point.
I do like Embiid a lot, but I worry that, again, I'm normally back-to-back, I don't care at all. But with him, he very rarely ever plays. back-to-backs. So the fact that he's going to, and we know that he is, means that maybe they limit him to like 28 and 28. So that's really my only concern.
All right. There you have it. You find Dave on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. As he said, he is writing Tuesday, Thursday, the deep dive. Then you see him daily on the deeper dive with Adam Scher. You see him on the NFL content as well. And then don't forget Saturday and Sunday, Sirius 210, XM 87. That's 5 to 7 on Saturday, 7 to 9 on Sunday with Osmo Radio. It's like I'm still hosting over there. I know it's just so natural. And find him there. Find him everywhere pretty much when it comes to Osmo content. So you can check Dave out throughout. As I mentioned before, don't forget to follow Osmo_DFS, Osmo NFL, Osmo NBA, all the different handles, because there's constant giveaways for sports specific subscriptions or overall or whatever it might be. So you want to check that out. And don't forget, subscribe on YouTube, like and comment, and make sure to hit that alarm bell. Find me on Twitter if you so choose at Dan Strafford. With that said, we wish you the best of luck on this 10-game NBA slate. Tomorrow morning, you get Emac and Adam right here on the DFS Early Bird presented by Osmo.com.